Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Unlocked podcast. I am so excited to be here today, sharing space and time with a good friend, Christina Christian. Christina is an inspiring leader, entrepreneur, human being with a huge heart, so much passion, just genuinely genius at who she is and what she does. And I'm excited to bring her story to you all today because I think it's very valuable to hear from real people who are doing real lifestyle design, who are being intentional with their lives, matching their purpose and their mission with the work that they do in the world, and so using all of that to support the lives that they want to lead. And Christina is one of those people. And she has been living a very inspiring journey that she's going to share in detail with us today, both the ups and the downs and all the things that she's learned along the way. So, Christina, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your journey with our listeners.
My pleasure. It really is true joy to be with you today.
Now, Christina, can you kick us off by starting at the beginning? I want you to start beginning, and how far you go back is your choice. But really what I'm looking for is for you to share with our listeners what life looked like before you are where you are today. Where were you? What were you feeling? What were you doing when you had that experience of like, I know there's something else in me. I can feel it. I know there's something in me that I want to do, but I may not be doing that right now. Where were you at? What were you doing? What did that time look like in your life?
Ooh, a great way to start. And I will set the stage of actually just sharing a little bit about childhood, because I think we all carry childhood stuff with us into our adulthood. And I think it certainly shapes the way we look at the world. And I'll share that I didn't grow up in the best sort of home life. My home life was very chaotic. My family struggled. My mom was a single parent. She didn't graduate high school, and she was really young. And I remember seeing her struggle a lot. And at a very early age, I think just making a promise unconsciously to myself that like, I didn't want to be like that. And I didn't want to have this life where I just felt like I wasn't in control of it. And it felt very much like I didn't want to choose like this ongoing struggle. And so I'll set the stage there because when I get to the end of the story to share where I am, for me, it's just the journey has been long, right? Like to know where I came from and know where I am now. It's one of those things where you don't always get to see people come out on the other side like that. So I'll set the stage there. But fast forward to, I think, the moment I realized that like I felt a little different, and I knew there was like something bigger and something better and something more deeply aligned with like who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up in the world. And that moment was when I was planning events and experiences for other people. And for me, being able to curate an experience where people felt connected and seen and felt in community was like this huge eye opener for me around, space and place and surroundings, you can affect how people feel. And it became so much more clear over the last, we'll call it like 5 or 6 years, where it really developed into a passion. And for me, it was also creating space and place and community for myself. And that was, I would say, like something that I recognized, like over a decade ago, that like, that's what I really craved, right? I think everyone craves that in place and community, belonging, connectedness. And I do very much recall, for anyone in Ohio and Columbus in specificity, because that's where you and I met originally, in Columbus, Ohio. I remember being at Rockmill Brewery. Do you remember Rockmill? Or
Oh,
have
yeah.
you been to Rockmill?
Yeah. Great space.
A great space. And I was so inspired by like the family who said, oh, we have this great place. We can brew beer, but then also create community and space around like this product that they had. And I think it was like in 2014. And I was at the brewery at their tasting room, which they converted from an old house, right? Looking around, being like, this is amazing. Like they get to live here, they get to be here, and they get to create place, space, and community like at this destination. How do I get to live that every day? Right? Like, how do I get to look at this beautiful place and like create the space and container where like people are coming to celebrate things, to be together, you know, in this incredible, beautiful place. And I feel like distinctly that was a moment like in 2014 where I was like, okay, like I don't know how this is going to happen, how I would do it, but I declared to the universe that, gosh, like I want to create place and space and community. I don't know where, I don't know when, but like I want to wake up every day and like be able to offer this experience and place to people and do it as a job or a career, because that was like deep alignment around, you know, what I wanted to feel every day for myself, but also to offer to other people.
So I'm assuming that in that time, and knowing you and your journey, I know a little bit about this, but to share with our listeners, that's not how you were living your life at the time, right? That you were in it. What kind of job were you in? What kind of role were you in? How were you actually spending your time on the day-to-day as you were kind of experiencing that knowing?
Yeah. I was planning events and experiences for other people on behalf of other companies and brands. And so spent a lot of time doing community before community was actually a thing. So back in the day, as we like to say, right, I was working for companies like Yelp and Jeni's Splendid Ice Creams, doing events and experiences that, again, were bringing people together. But we're like bouncing around like other locations and spaces, right? So we would be creating that event or experience with that product or brand at different places and spaces. And gosh, like to have to recreate place and space at different places and spaces all the time, like it was a lot of work. You know, it was a lot of work. That led me to start my own company that was community based, and wanted to take all those things I was learning or that I learned and applied on behalf of companies like Yelp and Jeni's Splendid Ice Cream, to be able to package that and to offer to other companies and brands. So did my own thing for a little while, thought that's what I wanted to do. And probably like a lot of listeners, right? Like you try on pants, as I like to say, and then maybe the pants don't fit anymore. And so what that led me to do, though, was start to volunteer also with other events and experiences, and planned with a team of awesome individuals the first Columbus Startup Week, which was a 5-day event for entrepreneurs in Columbus, Ohio. And that was a global event, global experience, but was able to do that with a volunteer-led team. And what that led me to do was connect with a company called Techstars. And Techstars planned startup weeks all over the world. And I was recruited to be able to be the program manager for that multi-day event. What that led me to do, though, was be able to, again, continue to do events and experiences at venues all over the world. And what that helped me lead myself back to was I wanted to create place and space at one place and space. I wanted to be able to curate those really thoughtful and intentional things. And it sort of helped me connect back to that original dream when I was at Rockmill Brewery around, gosh, I want to create a container in a gorgeous location that people can experience. And I wanted to use all of the things that I knew that were thoughtful and intentional, and help people connect with each other in place at one location. And so that was kind of all the things I was doing over the last decade plus that led me to where I am now.
I appreciate you going into that detail because I think it's really helpful for people to kind of reflect on their own journey of this, whatever, whether it's a decade or just a couple of years. I think there's always these threads, even going all the way back to childhood, that we can access about ourselves in reflection and start to see the dot connection. And we can use all of those experiences to kind of build. They're like building blocks. And I love that you said, well, why don't we try on a different pair of pants? Right? I'll try on this pair of pants. I know ultimately that I know the vision of the wardrobe I want to have. I kind of feel it. I kind of have a sense for it, but I have to go to the store and try on different pants. And it's very rarely going to be that I'm going to find the perfect pair of pants on the first try. Right?
Truth. Yes.
And you did that, and you tried on different things. You were kind of taking all these dots and these threads that you saw of yourself again and again, both inside of you, but also as a need from the people around you. And you were able to start connecting those things and being able to say, well, can I do it in an entrepreneurship model where I'm creating this for other companies, more of a service-based model? Or does it need to be a different kind of model? Oh, I could do it in a volunteer capacity. I could do it in a global organization capacity. And ultimately where you're at today is doing it in this actual beautiful location, that taking it all the way back to, was it 2014 at Rockmill Brewery? Like you have now taken all of those steps and all of those threads and that connections and put on this pair of pants. And who knows what ends up happening, but you've put on this pair of pants and it feels so on brand and authentic to what you've just shared with us from the journey. So share with our listeners where you're at, what you're doing. What did all of that lead into? Where are you?
Yeah. And before I share that, I will also share that like the reflection that I just shared with your listeners didn't happen overnight, right? Like being able to put the pieces and parts together, I think is an exercise that I would encourage your listeners to explore as they are, exploring their own path or journey or things like that. Being able to reflect and put those parts and pieces together is incredibly, incredibly powerful. And so I would offer that as an invitation to your listeners of, while I just shared that took some work to be able to put all those parts and pieces together, and being able to zoom out to reflect on that is incredibly powerful. So I would offer your listeners that invitation to be able to put those two things together. So
thank you for pointing that out, because I think we always say that in order to be intentional and to move forward in the way that is most aligned with yourself, you have to reflect. So I'm sure you went back to the journal, back to the reflection pond many, 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 many times, and continue to ask yourself questions. And I feel like it's a never ending journey that I'm sure you are still on, even with where you're at now.
Absolutely. And what a transition. So where am I at now? Where I'm at now is in 2021. Actually, let me go to 2020. Since we all went through a pandemic together, I will take your listeners back to 2020, where a lot of people like me probably were sitting in their homes or wherever they were. Maybe they were someone else's home, sitting in a place because we were stuck there, and said to themselves, and I said to myself, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And like, what am I spending my time on? Right. It gave us, again, to take a note from our reflection conversation just a second ago, right? It was a time of reflection of like, gosh, like how do I want to spend my time? Right. Like you actually had a moment to slow down and ask yourself that question and answer it. Right. And so in 2020, I reflected back on like, gosh, what did I proclaim in 2014 that I wanted to do? And why do I want to do it? And I got very, very clear. And what I mean by that is I wrote it all down, and I took an approach of, what do I want to see? What do I want to smell? What do I want to feel? What do I want to hear? Like really took a very thematic and sensory approach to how do I want to live my life, right? And it was incredibly powerful to get that clarity, because you can build a business plan, and sure, there's clarity in the business plan. But there is so much more clarity in how do I want to feel? How do I want to, like, what do I want to see? What do I want to smell? And so, because I had the time to be able to sit down and do that, and by the way, we don't need a pandemic to be able to ask ourselves those questions. It just happened to be my moment in time to do that. I just got really clear, right? I just got so clear on like what I wanted to see and feel. And if any of your listeners are into manifestation, this is an example of what manifesting is, because manifestation requires you to be very clear, right? And I wrote down all the things I wanted to see and feel like in this business venture / lifestyle design, to use your words. And I had that written down. It was out of my brain. And for me, that was the map. It was the map of like, okay, great. Like, how do I get there? What is the next step? And because I had that original clarity, it made making the steps a lot easier. And again, like getting it out of your brain, getting out of your gut, like getting out of your heart, because again, you're using a somatic approach and I use that somatic approach. I wanted to see a gorgeous place that I could curate to have to offer to people for incredibly connected, meaningful, and memorable events and experiences. And so I wanted to see mountains. I wanted to see wildlife. I wanted to hear flowing water. I wanted to feel inspired to wake up every morning to watch an incredible sunrise or the stars so clearly. And those were just a couple of examples of the things I wrote down. So fast forward, I used that as the map to create a business plan of what the next steps were going to be and what the business was going to look like and how it was going to, of course, make money and make a career for myself, hopefully, cross my fingers. And fast forward, because I feel like I had that, that really clear picture, it allowed me to like start to search for properties. And I'm based in Colorado, and Colorado isn't cheap. It's a really incredible, amazing place. But it's not inexpensive. And I got a little frustrated on that journey to not be able to afford what I saw, what I felt, what I heard. And in late 2021, the property that I'm at now in central Colorado revealed itself to me. But this is where we'll take a little bit of a turn. Well, I'll go inward and share a little bit vulnerably kind of the circumstances, but it's made me more connected to this place. In late 2021, while I was still searching for properties and being really frustrated about this dream that I'm trying to make come true, I shared the dream often with people, which I also encourage your listeners to do, especially if you are very clear on what that dream is. Talk about it, put it out in the universe, manifest it. And so, that's what I did with a lot of friends. And in late 2021, during 2021, as I was going through that journey and searching for properties, I had a friend named Jill, and Jill was my hiking buddy here in Colorado. And I talked about the dream often, and I talked about the frustration often of I found this property, and I would also share the reasons why I thought that property was the right one, even though I knew it wasn't, because it didn't have the things on the list, didn't have the clarity, like the list clarity that I had. But I was always like backing into it because, again, when you have a dream, you're like trying to make it come true, but sometimes those aren't the ones. I think that would be a reflection I would offer too, is sometimes when things come across your path, like trust your gut when you know it's not the one, and just trust that like you have your clarity in your list. You don't have to back into everything. But I would share with Jill often my dream and my frustration of I would find these places and spaces that I would always be backing into. And it was just really great hiking fodder. We'd travel over Colorado and hike these awesome trails. And Jill was always so open to listening and sharing feedback. So she knew about the dream. She knew about it very, very deeply and intimately. And in late 2021, as I was kind of, we were going into the winter season. A lot of properties don't show up in the winter season. I was kind of like putting the dream on the shelf for the season. And in late 2021, Jill sadly took her own life. And if any of your listeners can relate to that pain, it's a really deep one. It's a very, very deep one, especially when it's someone who's really close to you. And it was a complete shock. And I was in a really low place. And Jill sent me a goodbye letter that I got in the mail after she did it. And in the letter, she mentioned the dream and that she was sorry that she couldn't be there to see it in person. And that she knew it was going to be successful and amazing. And I got that letter and was in a really dark place. The day after I got that letter is when where I am now, which is an incredible property in the central Colorado mountains that had everything on my list, showed up in my inbox. And I can't convey quite how your emotions are in such different places when you have this thing that's in alignment with what you're trying to manifest that's supposed to make you quote unquote happy. And then the other side of it, which is you're just in such a deep phase of grief, or this deep cloud of grief. But I feel like she sent it to me because when I showed up at this property for the first time, I was all over the place mentally and emotionally. But I felt her here the moment I stepped on property. And it had everything, like I mentioned, on that list. But one thing it didn't have on that list was just like this deep emotional connection to this place. And dare I say, like the spirituality and the spiritual energy that I felt at this place. So I felt her immediately when I stepped foot on property. And making this dream come true with this particular property became such a deep part of my grief journey. And I feel her every day. And I also knew that while I had a business plan, there was something else to this property and the reason she sent it to me that became a part of this story and a part of the journey that I've been on the last year and a half that we've been here.
Wow. Thank you so much. And I know I speak for all the listeners when I say that we're so sorry for that loss and that experience of going through that. And also, can feel the love that you had for her and the love that she had for you. And now the connectedness that you get to share ongoing because of this place and space that came at the time that it did. And what I feel in hearing you share all of that is that it's so much more than the business plan, like you're saying, right? It's so much more than that. It's so much more than what we can think into existence or strategize into existence. That there's often, especially for work that feels very purposeful or passion oriented or mission based, there's just something so much deeper to it and so much more connected and meaningful. And there's like a deeper reason why you're doing what you're doing. And we don't always know, intellectual know why or what or how, but that there is you kind of have to respond to the energy of the experience. You have to respond to that feeling of, yes, this is right. Yes, this is right. Yes, this is right. Yes, this is right. Right. And everything else that you had seen, you intellectually saw it and we're trying to force function it into existence, right? Trying to see it. I can run the numbers. I can see the spreadsheet, right? I can see it in my mind, but you didn't feel it. And then in this moment in time, and this, maybe divine timing, whatever, belief you might have or others might have, you felt this property and this thing showed up, and Jill brought it into your experience. And I'm saying that because that is, what you believe to be true. And being someone who believes very similarly, I also believe in that, right? That she was in such support that I love that you say that she revealed that to you in that timing. When you think about that, and I know that this is a topic that's really important, and I think it's important in this moment of this story, this part of the story, how have you integrated that level of feeling and that level of kind of just like stepping into the flow? Just like you don't always get to control mindful, in your mind and in the logistics of the world, we don't always get to just control making these things happen. How has that story and the other things that have kind of unfolded in your journey, how have those things like helped you to think about stepping into the flow and not fighting it, but being in it and kind of releasing your expectations of how you think it should be?
Yeah. Gosh, that's such a powerful one. Yeah. So when you have a business plan and you have all these things that you plan on happening, it is so important to be flexible and to be malleable, and frankly, to be able to know how to slow down, to listen, again, to reflect, listen and reflect, to bring it back to our conversation about reflection. For me, having a physical space, having a physical space that is really immersed in nature has been a very humbling learning experience when I'm trying to create place and space for other people. And I don't always get to make those decisions, right? And while I had this business plan and this version of how it was going to go, it was a very painful, but now in reflection, humbling experience to go through some pain to then be able to listen about what this place and what this version of this place is meant to be and to be offered to. And so the plan was to have this gorgeous space to do weddings and events, specifically corporate retreats. And so coming from the venture capital and startup community, my plan was to have these really awesome corporate retreats. And we were going to coming out of COVID, it was like, take your team out to this wonderful nature experience. And I worked really hard for many, many months in the beginning of the last year and a half, the last, we'll call it the first 9 or 10, 11, 12 months, to try to make that plan happen, right? So I was holding so tightly on what that was going to look like and how it was going to be, and got zero traction in that plan. At the same time, was listening for, I feel like, what the place was telling me to be able to offer for experiences. And that required some meditation, right? Some like just time spent quieting myself literally here on this property and this land. But it also, again, took some other people sharing what they felt here and listening to that as well. And the flow for me has looked like frozen pipes and how how frozen pipes and the repair and cost of those offset when and how the next event was going to happen. But then while that was happening, recognizing there was like a big snowstorm or something, like, so that event would have been miserable anyway. So I think the flow has been being able to quiet myself to listen to what is working, what is not working, and being able to let go around what I thought was going to happen versus like actually what's happening. And especially when you have a physical space, there are so many things that are out of your control, and you can't hold so tightly onto the way you thought it was going to happen. And that's, you know, for me, again, it's based in a physical space, but if it's any career or service or any sort of business, I think it's just being able to slow yourself down to listen, and not, for me, again, not being so emotionally tied to an outcome, and being able to go with the flow. Right.
Yeah, I can appreciate that so much because sometimes you just really have no other choice. And I appreciate that you've shared, it's just a humbling experience, that it's not doesn't work exactly as you think it's going to work. You have to be open to those things happening and then being open to whatever's supposed to unfold.
Yeah. As painful as they are.
Right, exactly. Which, we always say that having structure, our core project is called Strategic Planning for Life, right? So you think that the idea is to make a plan and to have that plan and to stick to the plan. But the whole concept is, if you have structure and vision and direction, then you can release the how. Then you can releasing
the how.
Yeah, you can release and be flexible. And one thing that feels so wise in what you're sharing is that you have the general sense and the general direction of where you're going, but you've opened it up to say, it's not just about me. It's about this place and what it needs to become and what it wants to be and what it needs to share with the world. And it's about the people who are meant to experience it and what they're meant to experience. Right.
Yeah.
And so you've made it less about you and just you, and you've made it more encompassing to all the pieces and parts that are part of that experience. And in that flow, like you said, if I did it just exactly the way that I thought it needed to be, it wouldn't have been as good, or it wouldn't have been even worthwhile, at least the story that we tell ourselves in reflection of that, as what did end up happening. It's just so hard in that moment where you want to hold tight to stability or to thinking that you know what it needs to be, when in all reality, we don't. We simply don't. Whether we think we do or not.
Absolutely. And I used to hear, I still do hear, entrepreneurs who use words like, it feels bigger than me. This dream, this work, it feels bigger than me. And frankly, I could never relate, and I worked with entrepreneurs often, and I would hear origin stories often and would be very inspired. But I couldn't relate to that feeling, and there was always kind of like, I was like, oh, I'm missing out. Like, I don't know my purpose. Like, what do you mean it feels bigger than you? And still being so much in awe by that. And with this, I actually can share that in my story now. It does feel bigger than me. And it goes back to, again, actually just slowing down to be able to reflect and listen. And for me, again, like having my dream come true was to be able to have this place to offer for events and experiences that were memorable and incredible and unique and one of a kind, and be able to live that every day. That was my dream. And being able to slow down and listen to what this place is telling me. It's bigger than my dream, it's bigger than my business plan. And there have been, like lessons and a lot of humility and frankly, a lot of vulnerability in being able to, again, reflect and say, oops, like that wasn't exactly how it was going to work out. And being, again, able to go and flow and let it go. I can share that this feels bigger than me, and what a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing. And I guess I would share too for listeners, like, don't be discouraged if you don't feel that. I would say quiet down a little bit more to like listen to if you could feel that. Right. because it's a very overwhelming, in a good way, feeling to connect on that deeper level around like what you're spending your time and energy and heart on, and be able to share, I think, in the bigger version of how things are meant to go and just be a part of it, versus like having to control it.
Yeah. Now, I want to hit on something because, well, first we need to say it's the Colorado Retreat Co. Colorado Retreat Co. It's this beautiful location.
Yeah.
We'll share the website and all the stuff in the links because it's just so worth seeing and experiencing. But what you've created, and I'm looking forward into your next few weeks that you shared, where you have several weddings coming up, all back to back, and what I'm hearing from you and what I think is really important to reflect on is that in doing your part to have this space, these people who are having this major life milestone over the next couple weeks, they're experiencing that major life milestone of families coming together, of love being celebrated, of this huge moment in their life happening on this property that you've nourished and taken care of and put your sweat and tears and probably blood into, knowing the space that you're in.
That's true. Yeah.
And poured money into as well, right? That you've poured so much of yourself into. And so many people, even over the next few weeks, will get to experience that in such an incredible way and have this memory of their life experience because of you, right? And you won't be at the center of their pictures, but they will be in this beautiful setting, all because you decided to take that step and follow your plan and follow your senses and to invest in the way that you want to invest. So all of this is really wonderful and beautiful. And I always like to add this piece on for the skeptics in all of us, the practical people in all of us, the logical parts of all of us, because you are a very practical person. I've known you for years, and I know that you're not just like woo woo, all is good, like feel so good, but you've mentioned several times that things have been challenging. And we both know that in order to own a business and run a business, especially events and experiences, it requires the financial setup. It requires operations. It requires time and investment and partners and vendors and all of these things. So my question in all of that is, how have you balanced and how have you taken care of both pieces? So we've talked about how you've kind of nurtured the flow and you've, really listened and you've tried to honor both your vision, but also the vision of the land and the vision of the people who are experiencing it. How have you then also supported and separated or blended the other more logistical, operational parts of the business that also have to work in order for these other pieces and parts to work? How have you done that?
Well, it's been a learning experience, right? Very much a learning experience. And, we mentioned flow and letting go of outcomes and letting go of an emotional attachment of the way you thought it was going to go. There has been a lot of tears around that. And, again, it's been very humbling to sit when you're looking at financials to be like, oh, this isn't working right now because we have broken pipes or we needed to replace part of the roof or all these foundational things that, again, with the physical space, you just don't, how do you plan for a lot of that stuff? So for me, so much of it has been decoupling what financial success looks like and what just success looks like for me, what I feel success to be. And, I wanted to share that foundational piece at the beginning of our conversation around where I came from and where I grew up, because society, right, will tell you that, like, yeah, if you don't have those resources, if you don't have that support, if you didn't have that background or knowledge, like, you can't make that come true, right? And of course, there'll be amazing people in our lives that if you listen, that will give you that encouragement. But making this dream come true is my success, right? Like I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And so for me, it was so much around redefining what success looks like and trusting the flow of cool, that financial success will come. And it's not going to come the way and the timing I thought it was going to. And man, I'm just going to be really financially uncomfortable for a little while. But I think just trusting and trusting in the uncomfort and just knowing that that financial success is going to come was a big thing. But moreover, it was I am successful. This is my success. I declared that I wanted to wake up every day in a gorgeous location and curate this place and space for people. And is it perfect? No. Are there things I still want to do? Yes. But I'm doing it. Like I'm doing it. And so that is success. And recognizing I am there.
That's amazing. You know, it's funny. I was just reading Marcus Aurelius this morning. I go back to his meditations often. And it's so funny that you said that, because even thousands of years ago, he wrote these words, but it was basically that, you know, like the success is that you're doing it, right? That is the achievement. That is the achievement of the lifetimes that you're doing it. And it's not, you know, in his words, the riches or the wealth or the material goods that you have in your life, but it's the fact that you're doing it. And so I have a question that I like to ask people, and I want to ask you this in reflection. I love playing the would you rather game in reflection. Ooh. So would you rather now, sitting where you're sitting today, knowing all the challenges that you've been through, knowing the hard that you've endured, knowing the ups that you've experienced and the highs that you've experienced and enjoy, knowing the full picture, would you rather have that journey, the journey that you've been on, or would you rather go back to maybe where you were when you made that leap and not make that leap in 2020, 2021? Stay on maybe the path where you're still creating experiences for other people. You have financial stability. You have the kind of the structure that maybe you don't have as much right now, but you have this other side of it. Would you rather, if you had to see those two paths in your life, which one would you rather live and continue to live out?
Of course I'd be on the hard one, right? And first of all, has anyone of your guests actually chose like that? Yeah, I really would have stayed on the path of stability.
No.
I thought so. I've learned so much, right? Like so much through discomfort that I apply to other places of my life, not just in this business/life venture. Learned so much in the last year and a half that I wouldn't have learned if I was so comfortable and just like, you know, like cashing it in literally and metaphorically. So yeah, like I would much rather have been on this harder quote unquote journey because I've learned so much. And again, back to what we just shared, or what I just shared, of like, I'm doing it. Like how many times or how many people in your life actually do it and say, gosh, I made that dream come true, right? I got clarity, or I defined clarity for myself in that dream. I made a plan. I followed the steps. Was it always easy? No. But when you can say that you made a dream of yours come true, it doesn't have to be as big as this, right? It doesn't have to be this big you know, other business venture. It could be other things. You know, I'm sure you have other dreams around, you know, that are non-business related. Gosh, like it's powerful. It is so big. And being able to, again, like stand in a place where you can declare that, like, I made a dream come true. Chase that, do that. Even if it's hard, do it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for answering, because even though we don't typically get the other answer, I think that the reflection moment is always valuable, because, you know, we always say, what's going to make you most proud when you're at the end of your life and you're looking back on your life? What's going to make you more proud? And I think that's one of the easiest ways to make decisions, right? It's one of the easiest ways to kind of, if you're stuck in a situation, if you're stuck not knowing what to do, if you feel like, gosh, I don't know if I can take that risk and start that business or chase that dream because what if, right? What if the pants don't fit?
Yeah.
What if the
Yeah.
pants don't work, right? And then I've spent all this money on a good pair of pants and now I can't wear them, right? Like that.
Very analogy. Yeah.
Right, right. If we do that, if we ask ourselves that question, then at least, and the majority of the time we say, I would be more proud if I took this route because at least I tried, right? At least I tried, and maybe even that thing, you don't actually end up liking it, which is fine, right? You always have the right to change direction, but just, you're right. The hearing you say it and hearing you express what makes you most proud, and that even the discomfort makes you proud, and that you've got so much learning. I think it's good for listeners, for us on the other end of your words, to hear it and to feel that, and to be reminded of, oh yeah, like that is life, that is living, that is, and it doesn't have to look like having an entire space, like you said. It could be just like a tiny shift in the day to day, right? It could be like creating a beautiful morning ritual. That could be enough, right? But just being able to say, what do I actually want? And then going and trying, that's enough, right? That's success. That is, that helps with the clarity for the rest of us to hear.
Yeah. And no one talks about the hard enough, I would say. Like, I think successful, quote unquote, again, using our analogies around success, our definitions of success. No one always talks about the hard, you know? And man, like we should. We should. We really should. Before we started recording, we talked about, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And even though, I have this incredible location, the Colorado Retreat Co., and I'm curating these awesome places and spaces for these memorable events and experiences, like it's really hard. And again, there are a lot of tears. Yes, there has been a lot of blood. Like no one shares the hard. It's not the fun stuff that's part of the story, but it's part of the story nonetheless.
I think that it's so valuable to share that hard for everyone to kind of see below the surface, because we do live in a society where we're kind of just watching from the surface of a lot of people and their experiences, but we're not really sharing the piece that's below that, and the piece that's like the genuine behind the scenes when you're alone on your couch and you're like, what? And this happens to everyone, right? This is true for everyone, where you're just like, is it going to be okay? Is it going to work? Is it, and how do I make it work? Like, what's the creative solution here? And just that grit and the resilience that's kind of born in that moment. We don't talk as much about those moments, but how critical they are to that surface level that we see, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of have to see all of that picture and be able to share that. And you're right, we don't do it enough. So I appreciate you sharing today that it has been ups and downs. It has been challenging. And there has been blood and sweat and tears. There have been moments where you probably look at the pipes bursting and think, we can't survive this. We can't make it through this. What are we going to do? And I'm sure there's been many moments where you've had to get creative, extremely creative about, okay, well then how do we support all of this financially? If that's not going to be the thing that's going to happen right now, we need to find a different creative solution.
Yeah. And knowing when those things happen, that creativity, even if that solution also doesn't work, try another one.
Yeah.
Right. Try another one.
Yeah. There's often another solution, but I will say though that to honor the flow, there's also a point where we are hitting our heads up against the wall again and again and again, trying to find the solutions, like you were talking about with corporate. And then eventually you said, I'm fighting the flow. Like there's something here that's not working, and I need to step back and let it go where it needs to go, right? Like there's a dam in the river and I need to get around that and find a different flow.
Yep. 100%. 100%. And that's not to say that there will never be a corporate retreat here, right? And I think, in the analogy of the dam, it's like, cool, like, let's just get through the dam. I like to use, I'm a big fan of analogies. You probably have gathered. but it's being like water, right? Being in flow, go through the dam, right? Like do some twists and turns, go through the dam. Um, and there very well could be a corporate retreat here. I just haven't found that right corporate client yet, right? But in the meantime, going through the dam, being like water, going with the flow, not letting the dam just completely stop me. Being able to, again, just like listen to like, what else, right? Like, what else is the creative solution, and not getting so caught up in the block, right? And gosh, like that's been a journey too. And again, it's painful. It's painful saying, oh, that solution that I thought was going to be the solution is not working. Right. And again, the painful experience of like, ouch, I thought I was right. I thought I was onto something. And oh my gosh, I've spent a lot of time, effort, and money trying to make that work. Like you do, again, like you have to let go to be like, that's not working. And like, what's next? What is the next pair of pants? Right.
Yeah. What I appreciate about that is that after, 10 years doing what we're doing to some, all different levels of degrees of what we're doing, what I found is that when you hit those moments where it's not working, it becomes easier and easier to hit the dam and to be like, oh, I see it. It's not working. Let go.
Yeah.
Just detach and pivot, find the creative solution. It becomes so much easier to release and to let go and to just, where is the flow? Where is it? Like, okay, I'm not attached. Just take me where I need to go. It becomes easier with time. And then, things are still just as challenging, but as I'm sure you have felt, like the more you're in it and you're doing it and you're trying to take care of a physical location and have the space and the experiences, you just learn and you grow and you get more comfortable with the discomfort.
Yes. Ooh, that's a good one. You get more comfortable with discomfort.
Mm-hmm. What a proud thing to have and to do, and a skill to build. All right, friend, I know I want to honor your time. Please share with our listeners. First of all, there's we could talk for hours about the experience that you had. We barely touched the surface here. And I know that you're just a wealth of wisdom. So I'd really like for our listeners to be able to access you, to see you out there, to connect with you for an experience that they might have, that they want to have at your beautiful space. So where can they find you and connect with you and continue to learn from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is the coloradoretreat.co. And so would love for your listeners to check out our offerings. You can see more photos of this really gorgeous location here in Central Colorado. Would love to be considered for any sort of experience, whether that's a wedding, whether that's a wellness retreat, whether that's a corporate retreat, wink, wink.
Good job.
That is kind of the best location. Otherwise, if you're looking for a more like behind the scenes, interactive sort of, conversational, we're on Instagram. It's the Colorado Retreat Co. I post lots of content there. Right now, we're in the peak fall color change here in Colorado. So there's lots of fun content right now that I'm sharing, but would love to connect with listeners to share a little bit more of the behind the scenes journey at either of those places. And hopefully I hear from some of your listeners soon.
That is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, for joining us today, sharing your wisdom. For anyone listening, please go check out what Christina has to offer and what she's doing. It's beautiful work. It's a beautiful space, and I can only imagine what's to come. Thank you for sharing that with us today.
My pleasure. It was so good talking with you.